Welcome to October, the changing season, the clock's turning back in North America, and our grand silks and festive wear emerging from closets. This is Anita Says, a podcast about the world of Indian dance, a captured perspective of the events, landmarks, and aesthetic shifts that are occurring globally. And I am your host, Anita Ratnam. Hello again, everyone. We begin our second season of this monthly podcast, Season 2 of Anita Says. I want to thank everyone who has tuned in over the past 12 monthly episodes and those who have sent their suggestions, questions, and feedback. In this edition, I will answer an interesting question from one of our podcast listeners later on. But for today's podcast, I begin in New York City, the Big Apple, which has been the Western world's most important center for dance for many decades. But for the past 3 weeks, all eyes were on Indian dance events that crowded the calendar. The 17th edition of the IAAC Erasing Borders Dance Festival was the September marquee event. The organization IAAC stands for Indo-American Arts Council and was founded nearly 30 years ago by the enthusiastic and ebullient Arun Shivdasani, who wanted to bring a professional face to the various branches of creative expressions from India. It was an organic progression for IAAC to include dance as a category to its existing roster of film and literature festivals. Beginning with inviting artists from India, the festival has consciously made choices closer to its geography. Increasing flight costs for international artists and the constant subsidies and difficult visa fees needed to manage and produce dance has become a deterrent over the years. The digital edition of the Erasing Borders Dance Festival has been able to commission and encourage new ways of filming and showing dance, creating meaningful collaborations between filmmakers and performers. This genre has been very well received, but online viewing overall has waned since the pandemic, while the excitement is clearly for the physical, offline stage shows. The 2024 Erasing Borders edition featured names that have a significant social media following, dancers who have embraced a new age lens on choreography, performance, and presentation. The shift in classical dance aesthetics was seen in the fast-paced performances of Kumar Sharma, Sanskriti School of Dance, Vedya Spurti, Fusha Dance Company, and others. Each of them brought a firecracker energy to the cozy Alvin Ailey Theatre. In contrast, the measured and mature Abhinaya of Ramya Harishankar came as a soothing balm, her solo presentation evoking memories of her Abhinaya guru, Kalanidhi Narayanan. The star feature of the festival this year were the Kathak duo Nirupama and Rajendra, who concluded their hectic USA tour with this NYC appearance. The Alvin Ailey Theatre has been the venue for the Erasing Borders Dance Festival for several years, and the beautiful multi-story building with sunlit studios is the envy of many in the dance world. Alvin Ailey was a brilliant modern dance student of Lester Horton, and today his legacy lives on through his many iconic and culturally path-breaking works and the skillful management of his students. For the IAAC organizers, presenting an annual Indian dance festival in the world's capital of dance could perhaps be a moment to pause and seek a deeper engagement as curators and presenters. More attention could be placed on making brief announcements, tightly scripted introductions, shorter pauses between items, and overall timekeeping. Breathless dancers trying to speak soon after finishing a piece can be averted by someone else taking over their explanations. The success of the 17th edition of the Erasing Borders Dance Festival cannot be ignored. However, for the generation of young dancers who live and create in the USA, I want to state that this moment of euphoria, of packed theatres, bustling audiences, high energy buzz in the foyers and mainstream venues, with excited chatter in many Indian languages, endless selfies and laughter, has not happened overnight or even in a decade. This moment has been a long time coming. Through the 1950s, 60s, 70s, 80s, and 90s, There were so many elders who labored, taught, and performed in small classrooms, basements, temples, churches, synagogues to bring attention to the variety of Indian dance forms. There were several short performances within department stores like Bloomingdale's. Yes, I danced in the furniture section of the department store during the Festival of India in 1985, sponsored by Air India. So today, when Bharatanatyam, Odissi and Kathak are featured in mainstream festivals and theatres like the Joyce, the Alvin Ailey Citigroup Theatre and the Kennedy Centre, remember, these moments have been more than 50 years in the making. You're listening to the podcast Anita Says, and I'm Anita Ratnam. Now, with Suman Gollamudi as Executive Director of the IAAC Dance Festival, combined with a very capable team of curators like Deepshika Chatterjee, Shruti Mohan, and senior performer academic Uttara Asha Kurlawala, Erasing Borders is in safe hands. It has established itself as the most important Indian dance festival in the USA and an event that is the highlight for every emerging dancer and rasika. Here I wish to acknowledge the enormous work done by Rajika Puri, who for years, through her philanthropy, passion and relentless drive, invited several influential presenters and cultural gatekeepers to her home to watch Indian classical dance. Rajika has supported numerous dance organizations, visiting artists, and continues to present and produce Dancing for the Gods, a classical dance festival every spring in New York City. The New York Public Library lecture series named in honor of dance critic Dr. Sunil Kothari also carries her stamp. Rajika, like Maya Kulkarni and Uttara Kurlawala, are the seniors in New York City and represent the Three Devis. Teen Devi are the godmothers of Indian dance in their individual and collective capacities. This analogy is perhaps apt with the Navaratri season and the rise of goddess energy. I would also like to take a moment to talk about Maya Kulkarni. I met Maya during my decade in New York when she was a busy academic and university professor. Her total belief in tradition always shone through her frequent Bharatanatyam performances and talks. Trained by hereditary gurus, I least expected Maya to morph into her current avatar as mentor, choreographer, curator, and godmother to so many dancers who are more than a generation apart. Her thoughtful comments and keen eye for shapes, forms, and kinetics have coalesced into a new dance form she calls Shilpa Natanam. Beautiful examples of her evolving vision can be seen in the dances of Mesma Belsare and Sonali Skandan. At the New York Public Library, it was Alarmel Valli's turn to be this year's featured speaker. The earlier editions of the Dr. Sunil Kothari annual lecture featured Bijoyini Satpathy and Malavika Sarukkai. Valli was at her eloquent best. Her short hair and still youthful appearance attracted an older generation who have been influenced by her artistic brilliance. Valli articulated her early years of teaching from great gurus like Chokkalingam Pillai and Subbaraya Pillai and explained how the architecture of Bharatanatyam slowly became a personal signature for her. In her own words, how straight lines became fluid lines. Valli's storied life, replete with world travels and multiple awards, sits lightly on her slim frame. She's effortlessly articulate and always compelling to listen to and watch. Her deep conviction about Bharatanatyam and its immense possibilities never failed to move even the toughest cynic. You're listening to Anita Says, a podcast about Indian dance globally, and I'm Anita Ratnam. Moving away from New York City, I turned the spotlight elsewhere in the USA onto two Bharatanatyam artists who have assumed administrative roles in dance companies. Daniel Singh, one of the best presenters of Indian dance in the Washington, D.C. area, take it from me, I know, is now the artistic director of Anuradha Nehru's Kalanidhi Dance. Daniel looks to his role, in his own words, quote, opening up vistas of possibilities and movement. He says, I now have a broader palette to work with. I'm excited to be in dialogue with dancers who bring their ideas and impulses around social themes like Me Too, Black Lives Matter, ending genocide, and Dalit empowerment. End quote. A former New Yorker who has moved to Chicago is Kiran Rajagopalan James, now Executive Director of Kala Priya Foundation. From being a Bharatanatyam dance school, the organization has expanded into visual arts, music, theatre, and literature. Kiran says his main challenge is, quote, finding and training teaching artists of South Asian descent or those trained in South Asian art forms, adapting to our systems of dance pedagogy and making it a viable curriculum for schools and helping dancers earn a minimum living wage, end quote. Under Kiran's leadership, 2 performances were presented through Fish Eyes, Prakriti Arts, Kashi Aisola, and She Auspicious, Maithili Prakash. It is both interesting and exciting to see dance arts organizations moving to the next step of professional development and management with a founder and main guru making space for professional leadership. Leaving the USA and returning to India, I attended the 50th anniversary of Guru Chitra Vishweshwaran's Academy, Chidambaram Academy of Performing Arts, CAPA. It was an elegant and beautifully curated 2-day festival called Samanvaya, which embraced Chitra's many interests in history, faith, puppetry, neoclassical music, and of course, dance. Held at Mylappure's Bharati Vidya Bhavan Center, the performances flowed smoothly without too many garrulous speeches and tiresome shawl draping. 50 years, half a century of creating and developing a career and a brand is no mean feat. The celebration was a testament to Chitra Vishweshwaran and CAPA's unrelenting commitment to not just dance teaching, but outreach activities for special needs children, while encouraging the students to find their own voice and stride in their dance art. We were the fortunate generation to witness the sparkle, dazzle, and joy that Chitra brought to her dance when she moved from Kolkata to Madras, Chennai in the 1970s after marriage to musician R. Vishweshwaran. When she leapt onto the stage, it crackled with electricity. She took the classical Vaduvur style of Bharatanatyam and made it her own, with a distinct pedagogy that is recognizable in her senior students. She was also the first among the divas to simplify her costume and jewelry, dispensing with the elaborate headgear and layered necklaces. Her braiding of literature, music, physical theatre and performance has been a singular contribution to the modern history of Bharatanatyam. Team Nartaki congratulates Guru Padma Shri Chitra Vishweshwaran and CAPA on this important occasion. It is a somber anniversary. This month marks a full year of the conflict in the Middle East. With no end in sight and the violence index off the charts, innocent children have been severely affected. 5 months ago, dancer Aranyani Bhargav and dance historian Donovan Robert collaborated to bring attention to this tragedy. Many dancers in India and overseas organized events and performed for the cause. The result has been significant donations made to a children's hospital in Jerusalem, focused on helping the suffering children. Some of the artists who participated expressed their satisfaction at having made a conscious decision to be part of the solution through their art. Dance cannot stop a war, but dancers can use their art to bring attention to a cause. But often these efforts are ignored by the larger public. When film star dancer Hema Malini performed her extravagant production Ganga in Banaras, she faced trolling and criticism on social media. Can dancing on the ghats clean a polluted river? Asked netizens. Hema Malini expressed her concern through her artistic practice. Artists are citizens first and can claim space to comment upon societal issues in ways they feel comfortable. You're listening to the podcast Anita Says, and I'm Anita Ratnam. Faith and the arts can be a combustible combination, but faith is personal and can become a flashpoint when yoked to social practice and the arts. Indian classical dance is steeped in Hindu narratives and sacred literature. This does not necessarily have to confine all classical dancers into right wing. The left is too quick to confine classical dancers as right-wing if their art is steeped in myth and religion. One can be religious and traditional while questioning and also be radical in reinterpreting and recasting these time-honored stories. Yoga has morphed into Christian yoga and Jewish yoga in the USA, with courses, certification, and retreats to deepen one's connection to faith through asana practice. How does one amputate the roots of this globally popular practice from sage Patanjali, the progenitor of yoga, who is believed to be the avatar of Adisesha, the sacred serpent guarding Lord Vishnu? With so many versions of yoga in practice globally, it is now certainly far from its Indian Sanatan roots. The physical practice of the asanas, the emphasis on the breath and pranayama practices, are proven to be beneficial to physical and emotional well-being. It is perhaps better for these alternate yoga methods to focus on the physical rather than promise spiritual enlightenment. Likewise, in Bharatanatyam, there is a genre called Christian Bharatanatyam, an entire repertoire based on stories and narratives from the Bible. Several well-trained students graduate each year from the popular Kalai Kaveri College in Tamil Nadu. However, this has not happened without pushback. The recent national outrage about the adulterated sacred Laddu Prasad at the Tirupati Balaji temple being contaminated with animal products has many asking the question, what is the connection between temple, practice, ritual, tradition, belief, and the sacred origins of Bharatanatyam? It is now a global form, and thousands of students from various faiths across geographies have joyfully embraced it along with its Hindu-centric repertoire without friction or tension. There are now several religious and social commentators who are warning the public about this, quote, appropriation and, quote, hijacking. Now, is this alarm and anger justified? Should we not as a community be celebrating the global appeal and strength of the dance and meditative forms like Bharatanatyam and yoga, instead of arguing about how it's being harnessed and used? I'm back on stage. After 5 months of being sidelined with a freak wrist injury at home, I stepped back on stage last week. A private event for a women's organization saw my return to one of my favorite dance theatre productions, A Million Sitas. The hotel ballroom was packed, and I was filled with flutters of excitement and nervousness. And I was thinking, after 50 years or more of being in front of the lights, this butterfly sensation made me feel alive and centered within my body and mind again. This Sita production has traveled to 3 continents and completed nearly 50 shows. At this moment, the Lord Rama temple in Ayodhya holds a statue of a very young Ram Lalla without Sita's idol. The Ramayana has 3,000 established versions in circulation. This eternal tale and my presentation continues to reflect the bends and twists of political decisions. And there is no greater high than dancing. Gratitude to the universe. You're listening to Anita Says, a podcast about Indian dance. Now I come to the answer to one of the interesting questions from last month's podcast. The question was, how does one make the most of a rehearsal when time is very short? Okay. I feel that when there is a time crunch, it's important to hit the ground running. That is, everything needs to happen at once, quickly. So just try this. Dance the first 2 minutes of each of 5 items. Any 5? I'm taking, for example, Alaripu, Jatiswaram, Varnam, Padam, Tillana, Shlokam. One after the other in rapid succession, just like high-intensity workouts, and see if your mind and body can keep up with this rapid switching. Now mix up the order. Tillana, Padam, Jatiswaram, Shlokam, Alaripu. Keep that mind going and the body working non-stop. Switching rapidly between rhythm, subject, intention keeps the mind alert and in the present. Now, this may not be an ideal rehearsal, but it will shake up your entire system, and I guarantee you will reach a whole new state of fresh excitement. Another method is to take an emotional piece, say an Abhinaya item, but do it backwards. That is, start from the charanam, the end verse, where the lyrics come to a conclusion and the dramatic intention is at its highest. And then work your way to the center and then to the beginning. How does Abhinaya work in reverse? Can pulling back slowly be controlled? This kind of practice will make you be aware of how the emotional arc of a lyric or a song or a kriti is created. Now, these are only suggestions to put a lot of fun and excitement back in your daily practice, because let's face it, rehearsals can sometimes be tedious, and our dance art is centered upon the concept of ananda, joy. I hope you've enjoyed listening and reading to this month's edition. As always, we want you to subscribe to our podcast and our monthly newsletter, Anita Says, because we need you, not just as readers and listeners, but also as participants in this ongoing journey in the dance ecosystem. We cannot and should not operate in echo chambers. So keep those comments and questions coming. Not just Navaratri, but Deepavali also falls this month in October. It is a glorious time to mark the rise of female energy and to hold our loved ones close. The streets of my hometown are filled with color, noise, and numerous mythological character dolls that will decorate many homes. There's so much dance and music being celebrated all over India. The happiness index is on the rise, even though the world outside continues to spiral into chaos. I hope this podcast becomes a familiar ritual in your lives, like a good friend. Celebrate, be kind to yourself and to your loved ones. Light up your lives with positive affirmations, hope, and determination. Embrace impermanence and practice empathy. Feel gratitude for each new day. Thank you so much for listening. Please don't forget to subscribe to this podcast, share it, and tell your friends. Until next time, I'm Anita Ratnam.